Hello everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to the channel Bookables and welcome to another video in the Booktok series I have going on right now. So I've done several of these. I've done where I've read a whole bunch of Booktok books and figured out if they're worth the hype. I just did one recently of popular Booktok books that I haven't read and I don't know if I will. And today I'm going to talk about Booktok books that are worth the hype, ones that I think that do get the hype they deserve. Now, as always, with all of my videos, I just want to preface that, take my advice with a grain of salt. Everyone has different tastes, everyone has different likes, everyone has different dislikes. Just because I think a hyped book is not really that great doesn't mean that I'm the sole opinion on it. No, like that at all. It's just strictly that, my opinion. So I might talk about some books today that I think are worth the hype that you're like, no, they're not. Talk about some books today that you think are not worth the hype. Either way, it's my opinion. Just want to throw it out there as always because I feel like, you always have to preface that. So yeah, we're gonna talk about some Booktok books. Sometimes they get it right. A lot of the time, I'm not gonna lie, I do think they get it wrong. That is just me. So let's begin. I'll start off with my girl, Emily Henry. Emily Henry, before she really blew up onto the scene with adult romance, she was a YA writer. And actually, the one YA book I read from her, I really disliked. But then I got this thing in the mail, Beach Read, which was her first adult romance read, and I read it and I fell in love with it. Ever since then, Emily Henry has been a freight train of romance here in the BookTube community and the Booktok community, and I think they're all worth it. I have loved every single one of these, given them all 5 out of 5. Now, that's not to say there's some I don't like more than others. I will say that I'm of the unpopular opinion that my favorite book of hers was the one released last year, Happy Place. I loved it. As of filming, I have not read her brand new release. I'm just starting it. Funny story, so we'll see. But either way, I love this one. And I think Emily Henry is worth the hype. So I'm sure you're probably like, I'm getting tired of seeing Emily Henry on romance, on all the romance Booktok feeds, but I think they're worth it. They are romantic, but yet they have a lot of depth to them, and I love that. So I am fully on board the Emily Henry hype train, and I will probably continue to be on it. I'll be like the main conductor. Choo-choo. Speaking of, we also have my girl, Abby Jimenez. I have loved her from the beginning. No, I take that back. Her first book ever was The Friend Zone. I dislike that book. I really don't. That's my least favorite of hers. But ever since then, a lot of her books have been hits for me. It's The Friend Zone, and then I think it was Life's Too Short, are the only 2 ones I haven't loved. Every other one since then I have loved. I just finished her latest release just for the summer, and it might take my favorite out of all this. Usually my favorite book of hers is the Happy Ever After playlist. I love that one. I feel like it's highly underrated, but man, just for the summer hit me in all the feels. And she is getting hyped now, and I am so happy for her because I think she fully deserves it. I think, again, she's kind of like Emily Henry, so if you like Emily Henry, chances are you're gonna like Abby Jimenez. She writes really romantic books, but have a lot of depth and a lot of really emotional stuff in them, but man, they are so worth it. These are 2 romance authors that get off the hype, and I fully am behind all of that hype. Next up, we're just gonna go ahead and do Sarah J. Maas. Sarah J. Maas has been, I've been reading her since the beginning as well. She had the Throne of Glass series, and she had the ACOTAR series. And I want to say the ACOTAR series is when she really started to blow up. And that's not to say Throne of Glass wasn't really popular, but I like Throne of Glass. I never really truly loved it, at least looking back on it now, but man, I fell hard for the ACOTAR series. I just think the romance is really interesting in this book. This one is, like, I'd say if you're a really die-hard fantasy, complex plots, things like that, this is probably not the series for you. If you're a fan of romantasy, then yes, welcome, come on in. This book is just fine. You'll probably really like it. But if you want those really in-depth fantasy books, Sarah J. Maas, I don't think does it that well. That's not to say she does write really complex books for me, but I'm kind of stupid. So I don't know what to say about that. But I'd say a good chunk of her fantasy books are about romance, and I think that's why a lot of us keeps coming back. But she writes the fantasy she writes the fantasy parts really well. She writes great side characters, she writes different things, and I really enjoy it. She also, of course, has her Crescent City series, which is her adult series, which I don't care what anybody says. A Court of Thorns and Roses is adult. Like, it should not be labeled as YA. It should not. But either way, yes, I am a Sarah J. Maas girly. I'm here for it. I like it. I like it. That's all I have to say. I do think she's worth the hype. She is very good at what she does, in my opinion. Next up, we have Taylor Jenkins Reid. I discovered her a few years ago, and I fell hard. So Taylor Jenkins Reid is kind of split into two eras, in my opinion. Before she really got into the whole historical, fictional celebrity, she was much more chick lit, I will say. So she has a whole bunch of books, 4 books to be exact, that were released before these that were really kind of chick lit and light and that were popular but not really popular. I won't say until probably Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones came out that she got big, because she kind of found her niche and she stuck with it, and I am here for it. I love her. She is one of my favorite authors. I will buy any book she writes. She could write on the back of a macaroni and cheese box directions and I would be like, riveting. Tell me more. Tell me exactly how long to boil that water for, because I will listen to you. Taylor Jenkins Reid just has that appeal. So she has The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It's about a fictional celebrity. Amazing. Worth it. Daisy Jones and the Six. I'm sure you've heard of the TV show, which was a pretty good adaptation. Loved it. She also has one that I don't hear talked about a lot on Booktok, and that is Carrie Soto is Back. It needs to be. It was amazing. It's one of my favorites. And she does have Malibu Rising, which is probably my least favorite of hers. I didn't love it, but I do hear a lot about it on Booktok. So, I mean, I just think if you like Taylor, I just think that if you want something different, Taylor Jenkins Reid has you covered. Tennis, she has it. Fictional celebrity, actress, covered. Fictional band, kind of like Fleetwood Mac, covered. This one's about a marriage that they decide to split up and maybe try to work on their marriage. Gotcha. This one is about a husband who supposedly dies, but then he comes back and she's in a relationship with somebody else. So it's like a love triangle. Gotcha covered. This one is literally about like 2 different lifestyles, like 2 different lives. If she would have made one decision, it talks about that life. And if she would have made another decision, it talks about that life. Great. Oh, her saddest one about her husband, about a husband dying. Freaking so sad. But either way, Taylor Jenkins Reid is multifaceted and I love it. Next up, we have one that I think a lot of people will disagree with, and that is totally okay. And that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I think a lot of us had no clue what this book was about, and then somehow, I don't know if their marketing team was just freaking chef's kiss brilliant or what, but when I say this book exploded on BookTube and Booktok, it exploded. Like, it was literally everywhere. I couldn't open up any of those apps without seeing it. So of course, like a lot of people, I read it, I bought it, and I read it to see what the hype was about, and I'm here for it. Again, it's kind of like Sarah J. Maas. Is it like the most intense fantasy? No. Is it well drawn out with really intense characters? Sarah J. Maas definitely has that covered. This one, no. If you just want a steamy romance with dragons, like, here's your book for you. So it fit the bill on that. It reminded me so much of Divergent and Hunger Games, which that was my bread and butter when I first started BookTube. Like, that is how I kind of fell back in love with reading. So to bring the nostalgia back, like, I was here for it. I loved it. It's worth the hype because I enjoyed it. Is it the best well written? No. Next up, we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. She is an author that, again, I've been reading for a while. She has a lot of young adult books and she has a lot of adult books. This one's probably her most popular out of all of them. It's a standalone fantasy book that is kind of like a time travel type of thing that's very beautifully written. She is a very beautiful writer. Like, she writes beautifully. This is one of my favorite books of hers, and it is hyped up, and I do get the hype, but I kind of wish Vicious would get more hyped up. It's my favorite of hers. I love and adore it, and I feel like it's kind of better. Kind of a sweeping, fantastical love story with time travel in it. I would highly recommend it, and I do get the hype behind V.E. Schwab because, again, her writing, chef's kiss, so beautiful. Next up, I have a stack of a lot of romances that I see on Booktok quite a lot and that I really enjoy and would get behind the hype for. Number 1, The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Marina Zapata. I fell in love with this one. I kept seeing it on Booktok, and I wouldn't say it's like one of the really hyped ones, but I would see it more specifically when it comes to romance books. Loved it, fully understand it. I would say one of the earliest like hyped romance books, and what kind of got me into the romance genre, is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. Still my favorite all-time romance read. I love this one. Don't watch the movie. I don't think it's really worth it, but the hype behind this one is real for me still. I still will reread this at least once a year because I just enjoy it that much. So it's kind of like, it's not, I wouldn't say it's an OG romance. No, it's really not. But It's one of the first romances that got kind of hyped up online, in my opinion, and I love it. One I heard about in Booktok that I just randomly bought, fell in love with, In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. It is long, yes, but I loved it. Super steamy, super cute. Highly recommend. The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. They have been around for a while. They have written a myriad of books. I think their most popular one is probably the Unhoneymooners, with good reason. It's a beachy, cute, fun read that will always be my favorite by them, so I would get behind the hype on that one for sure. It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. Again, another author that's been around, that's wrote a lot of romance books. This one is one of my favorites by hers, and I could see why it gets hyped because it's definitely a very summery, again, like the Honeymooners with the steaminess and stuff like that. I really enjoyed it. One of my favorites. Tessa Bailey's always been a hit or miss for me. I will read what she writes, but more often than not lately, I haven't been loving it. Then we have The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, one of my earlier steamy reads. Whew, so freaking good. I wish it was a little bit more hyped in my opinion, but I'm glad it's getting some. I loved it. Still one of my favorite romance ones. Brown Sisters by Talia Hibbert. Love them all. Get a Life, Chloe Brown. Take a Hint, Danny Brown's probably my favorite in it, and then Act Your Age, Eve Brown. They're all amazing. Love it. Talia Hibbert, again, has been around a lot in the romance community, so she's no one new, but her books are worth it. Then we have Sarah Adams. She is one that I just recently found out, and I read a couple of her books last year. Didn't love them. I was like, I don't get the hype. Then, like, for particular, When in Rome, I thought it was okay, but then I read these two books this year and I'm like, I get the hype, I'm behind it, I'm here for it. Practice Makes Perfect, which is the sequel to When in Rome. Loved it, ate it up like freaking cotton candy. All of her books are closed door romances, which means no steamy scenes, but man, the romance is swoony, small town vibes. It is so freaking cute. Love When Practice Makes Perfect, or just Practice Makes Perfect. And then her latest release, The Rule Book, Second Chance Romance, Football, kind of the companion novel to the other book I read by her, The Cheat Sheet. Again, loved it. Fully in behind this Sarah Adams hype train now, 100%. Some cozy fantasy. The House by the Cerulean Sea, House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune came out a few years ago, blew up again, and I decided to read it. And oh my gosh, if you just want either of these books I'm gonna talk about, a warm hug book, this is one for you. Like I said, it's a cozy fantasy, so it's not super plot heavy, but it is adorable. As well as Legends and Lattes by Travis Baltrey. Again, this is about an orc opening up a coffee shop. Do these have the strongest plots? No, but do you feel like you're in a warm hug that you won't ever escape, but you don't ever want to escape because it's just so nice? These are it for you. Like, the hype is real. I'm here for it. I think some of the recent ones that have been getting hype is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This is a vampire werewolf romance that was all sorts of steamy, and I was here for it. I have been reading Ali Hazelwood for quite some time. I would say her first book actually got pretty big, and that is The Love Hypothesis, which is not one of my favorites by her, surprise, surprise. I do think it's really good, but my favorites of hers are definitely Bride, and then also Love Theoretically. I loved and adore. She writes a lot of STEM romance, which is women in science, and whenever you can support that, do it, because it's just amazing. That's all of the books that I've read that I think are worth the hype on Booktok. I'm sure I'm missing some because I always do. Please let me know. I am going to do another video of Booktok books that I think are not worth the hype. There's quite a few on that one. I'm sure you can probably already guess, but either way, Booktok, like I said, sometimes gets it right and sometimes doesn't get it right. But looking at its palette, it gets it right a lot of times. But I will say I read a lot of these before they truly got hyped on Booktok. I've already read them, or they were already on my radar, so I don't know what that says. But there are a few of these I read strictly because they got hyped and they were worth it. So there you go. I think when you take a book recommendation, it can go 50-50. 50% chance you'll like it, 50% chance you won't. That's just how it goes. Either way, that's just how it goes. I would love to know what Booktok books you think are also worth the hype down in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.